Let's go. All right, Christos, thank you so much for standing up on the call today. You can start by introducing yourself a little bit. Who are you? What's your experience? How's everything?
Okay, I'm Christos, a tattoo artist for over 15 years, and I've been running my own private studio setup for about 5 years now. Um, so, uh, what else?
Where are
What
you
else should I
based?
say?
Where are you based?
Where am I based? I'm based in Leeds, UK. Um, so yeah,
Nice. And you have your own studio, right? And you're also an artist, or what's the situation like?
yeah. So I'll tell you what, just a little kind of backstory is that COVID kind of shut down my old family business, which was a tattoo studio that my dad set up with me. And he emigrated back to Greece. And I was in survival mode with a pregnant woman, a pregnant missus, who was having my firstborn daughter in the middle of COVID. So I opened a temporary location at the back of a barber shop, and they basically sublet at a really cheap price this room that they use for storage space. And over the course of the next 12 months from that point, I went from a massage table with liners on it, to a fully like kitted out studio where I'd basically do trade for trade. I'd make £200-300 and then pay for someone to do some plastering. And 12 months later, I managed to kit out the studio. So here we are, another 4 years down from that, and initial survival mode laid the foundation for me to basically try and be a better businessman. So my money was very inconsistent. So was my personal life and my routine. So bit by bit, I managed to establish, a good sense of direction where I can get higher leverage on my tattooing time, so attract higher paying customers and implement systems basically. And that's where tattoo growth kind of like became the pinnacle for me to sort of move forward and trust in a process that's tried and true. And as much as I'd done the trial and error and trial by fire and walked the walk for a few years, this managed to accelerate things, tenfold just because of the time optimization, 100%. So yeah, that's where I started, and kind of now I'm at the point where things are definitely more structured. Even despite my best efforts before, having kind of like a consultation style and a sort of customer pipeline, but a very scaffolded, duct tape together one. Now there's actually something more bulletproof in place, and everyone's got a consistent kind of positive experience. And with my brand being positive in Gim, I'm not just trying to provide value in the tattooing, it's the experience as well for them to tell other people about me. I've got that rhythmic acquisition of reviews. I didn't even have a Google business page before I started. And now we've got 35-star reviews. And if you see the write-ups, it's fantastic. So that's just in the last couple of months. So I'm alleviating myself a lot of pressure, and I'm making a better life at the end of the day. And tattooing is something I'm not going to quit, but I can see so many other potentials rather than just being like a not starving artist, but like just an artist. There's other kind of strings to the bow, and the game is better played with more tools. And I think I like the content creation, I like business management, and actually accounting. I just didn't realize it at the start. I thought all I have to do is just do pretty drawings and color people in for a living.
Nice. That's very nice. Yeah, that's one hell of a story. And you've been into tattoo growth now for how long is it? How many months is it now? Like 6 months, 5 months, or
So I joined at the beginning of July.
beginning of
So we're
July?
now in, yeah, so it's been 4 months.
4 months.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
before you started with tattoo growth, like what was it that sparked your interest and like actually made you want to join tattoo growth?
Uh, No, sorry, the signal, like the latency there
Oh,
just wrecked all of the audio. Try again for me.
yeah. Like when you before you joined tattoo growth, like what was the main thing that made you want to join? or what was the main thing that you were struggling with at the moment?
Okay, so um, let's say I'm definitely uh, somebody who's on YouTube a lot, trying to, listen to the advice of big players, and that sense of inadequacy and being a bit underground, and just being a small time tattoo artist makes me feel resentful. So I'm wanting to do better. I'm starting to digest and download a lot of new terms, marketing, and kind of branding, uh, like methods at least. And I've been getting warmed up for maybe 5 years. I've watching hundreds of hours of videos, reading all the books, and I think tattoo growth passed my sort of qualifier test because it does have kind of, at the time it was premium pricing, and like I guess I found you when it was quite uh, fresh as well. But everything that you were all the touch points that you were talking about were like, well, these are themes that I'm seeing time and time again. So I believe in the trade, like I believe in the trade-off. If I invest into this, I think you've got an already established system. There's proof, promise, and plan. And I could lean into it with a lot of faith. I think just as a bit of a side note, when I speak to some other tattoo artists and things, they're not warmed up. They can't understand necessarily what hurdle or what chasm they're going to cross over into, because they don't have an idea that this sort of thing exists.
Mm.
It that if they can't necessarily perceive it correctly, then they've just got to have got a lot of blind faith and just be surprised by the end. But I feel like I could predict quite well what it was going to be at the other end of it. And it was just a case of, am I ready? Like the product offering, the service offering was like, this is exactly what I think I need and at the right time. So it was an easy jump. Um, I just needed to convince the girlfriend at the time, like this is going to be a bit of a commitment, and it's going to shift my routine and my timing and where my energy goes. So it wasn't like a light decision at all. It wasn't something where, oh, I can just take it or leave it. Like this was one of them. Life can be different from here on, and it did. I started waking up at 5 a.m. Invested in a printer, downloaded all the worksheets, and became like I wanted to be top student. And it might have lasted with that kind of momentum in particular on the platform. It was a good 60 days of diligence. But I don't really need anything more than that because now the transformation's happened. It's changed my actual day-to-day routine in the business. So it's because it increased so many it increased the demand supply tension. Like I can only tattoo say 200 people a year, and the first ad generated 188 leads, and they were warm and in a local radius, ready to give me money. Like that's 130-day stint. So obviously, eventually, it's like, right, I'm over flooded. Pause that thing. I was only looking for 30 people. And now with the power of profit and the confidence there that the supply, well, not the supply, the demand is actually there for me, which I've not had nowhere near that volume before. That's the transformational part where now I can start to plan, right, what tests can I do? How can I change my service and increase the price so that I can get more leverage back out? Whereas before, they would have just been pipe dreams.
Yeah,
They would have
that's
just
very
been
cool.
like, yeah, all right, you're ambitious, Christo, but you've got no evidence that you can get there.
Yeah, that's very cool. What would you say is the biggest change from before you joined Tattoo Growth to now?
Um, the biggest change, um, definitely just the peace of mind that is there. If I had no consistency of leads, small types of jobs that were coming in, touch-ups that were coming in, and people might book out a half day, but then there's a tension with regards to pricing for 3 to 4 hours work when actually it was 2.5 hours of talking because we're really familiar and friendly, and only 1 hour of tattooing.
Mm.
And that became kind of a routine. So doing things where I wasn't really in full control of what my service, and I didn't have a moat around my actual pipeline so that I can say you've got to do this and this step, and then by the time you're actually in for a session, there's agreement in place. So learning about expectation versus agreement, for example, even that managed to help create a structure where when I'm communicating and I'm making these offers and deals around the tattoo, like that's the big change for me. Having people who were kind of grandfathered in, and just familiar faces, sort of dictating how I was going to be day to day. They might be the best person to work with, or it could be a shit day at work, but I've had a nice time just being with them. And that's because of the powerlessness. Like now I've got a job. Now I can have control over, the formality, friendly for fear of not having a great reputation and not getting another customer again. There's an abundance of customers, and now I can confidently serve them all at a better level by actually having a system in place. So that is like an honest transition, which um, I didn't actually expect it to be like that. That was an accident. It kind of happened without my permission because it's got to. Otherwise, I can't really serve people who have shown their interest. They've got good projects to work with. If I'm still just kind of at the getting blown around by different kind of project requirements and different character styles and everything. Like I forgot that I'm actually in this world to do things that I enjoy. You know what I mean? Because I had to sort of beg a little bit. And somebody's going to come in with an idea, and I'm going to try and make sure that everybody says yes. But now I've got no fear of someone saying no and moving on to the next one. But obviously, as we just spoke about earlier, maybe before this, but having 180 people and getting through the first 60, and just basically the mindset was still I was still learning and getting used to it, and I just got everybody to say yes. So I just booked up 12 weeks straight away, just eating more than I could take because it was like, well, I've never had this before. I'm fucking starving. But next time round, I will be a lot more rigid. So yeah, I don't think I anticipated that. I thought there'd be a steady lead flow, and I'd have to be a bit more convincing as well. I thought maybe my inadequacies will start to show, but actually I got a lot of validation. It was like, no, you're more than ready. People like your work. They want to work with you. They trust you. You're not a hidden underground back of the barbers type of tattoo artist. That gave me a character feeling that was a little bit failed. Whereas now it's like, no, this is a cool part of the story. I'm in the back of a barber's, but it's thriving. I, there's a competitor on the same road at the bottom of the road, and he's shut down.
Yeah.
He's closed now. Do you know what I mean? And I think it will have been shit for him to have a look on Google and see my presence when I don't have a shop front. Do you know what I mean? And he's probably paying twice in rent, and he hasn't lasted. And I don't know. I want him to do well. There's enough customers for everybody, but I can definitely see how much of a strength it gives you to have a system in place and not do it the old school way where you rely on a fancy shop front with a big sign, and then you basically got to hope and pray that people are going to come in through the door. Like email, name, mobile number, and I'll give you a text. Like that is so simple, and yet I never did it on my own. I wouldn't have come to that sort of understanding, and create like a pipeline. Even when I was aware of Go High Level, for example, and stuff, like I've tried to have a crack at the whip, but I get too. You can tell even in my waffle, I get too detailed, and I try and be too sophisticated, and it's like, um, I've heard of a comparison in trading, day traders who are just too sophisticated, too smart. They try and look at too many analytics, and they get washed out. Like sometimes you just have to buy the stock, leave it for 60 years, and then it'll compound over time. But if you try and do all this analysis and figuring things out, you can't really beat the market in that way. You just have to don't be too cute, basically. Just do the basic things and create like a nice broad bandwidth that people can move through. And like emailing mobile number is not too much of a cost for them. It's like, oh well, I'll leave. I'll get a response back soon. And I think people have enjoyed that. Whereas before, I made it difficult when I was like one-to-one directly communicating. We used to have 15 message exchange on Instagram DMs, and I basically get as much information of them out of them as possible. And then I needed a deposit up front for them to come and speak to me for 1 hour. And then they come into the studio for a full hour and we try and make a design. And then maybe I get them booked in and charge £360. Whereas, the last 30 months, I give them one or two messages. I speak to them for 15 minutes. I take £120 deposit and I get £480 later down the line when they come in for the tattoo. Like, I've saved myself 3 hours on the front end.
Yeah,
It's madness.
3 hours per client. That is crazy. That
Mm.
is very cool to hear. Would you mind
Yeah.
also sharing some more like results that you've gotten so far since you joined in July?
Other results, 35-star reviews on Google. Um, what are the results?
Maybe raising the
Um,
prices or the leads or booked clients or
the, the raising prices, like you got to think that I went from half days of £360 more commonly, and I was trying to charge 600. Whereas this past month, most of the day sessions have been at 20% off, so it's £480, which is a bargain, to be honest. So £480, everyone said yes to, and I've been making consistently. So I'm going up from a lot of those half days at 360, but my tracking was really poor beforehand, so I don't know how much I was making per month. I can only look back on the calendar and see that there's a lot of half days and stuff like that, but I don't have like honest information to give you about whether I was making 6 grand then and 8 grand on average now or anything like that. I think that's my hunch though. I was probably doing about 1,500 quid a week,
mm,
and now I'm doing £2,000 to £3,000 a week, definitely. Just based on having 5 days at least of £480 coming in, which is it, it is good. It takes a lot of pressure off of me. I just feel like I could have probably got rid of that 20%, or at least implied 20% off of £750 and get 600 quid a day. I think people still would have said yes. So knowing that there's more money left on the table makes me excited for the next run. I feel like I've done phase one and they're the lessons learned. So I'll make more money coming into next year. I think I just want to get past the 10 grand a month. For Britain, that'd be, like for the UK, that's definitely like a high achiever in my mind for tattooing. I know a good few artists and people are averaging after tax like 30,000, 40,000 pound a month.
mm,
If I'm going to make triple their wages and I'm not really doing triple the effort, then I'm obviously pulling on the right levers then. Do you know what I mean? So we'll see how it goes. I'm confident in it though. I think we'll start to have consistent 10k months. That a version of me a year or two ago would be like, I've got to say, super excited with that. Whereas now I think, yeah, well, it's just a step. I'm sure I can get more than that eventually.
yeah.
So starting to push up the goalposts and see where it'll go. Um, and then, that's just how it goes. And you kind of get desensitized and you want to achieve more and more once you start passing through the levels. I get a bit carried away.
Yeah, that's nice. Do you know approximately how many clients that you've booked in from all of that with the campaign?
Uh, Yeah, so I, again on the pipeline, I, so I'm on the system. I didn't keep it up to date after about week six, um, but I did. I kept everything on set more. So there's about 60 new clients that I've taken. So out of 188 that inquired, I spoke to about 70, and we've moved with between 60 and 65 new clients, new projects. And I can tell also by the amount of design projects that are there. So I have to wake up and diligently do two design projects each morning in order to get them back the responses. And the iterations have been two to three per client. So I send them back the first proposal, and there might be a bit of an edit or recreate it once or twice, maybe three times. And it's made a bit more work, but obviously I'm dealing with a really high volume of people. I used to just design, kind of with them at the time, so I had less of my own tattoo time. But the other thing that's changed as a result of this routine is that I finish work earlier. I used to stay there with so much fluff and not high leverage stuff. I was doing 9 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night, maybe 10 o'clock at night. Whereas now I'm getting there at about 9 o'clock still, but I'm always back home by latest 6.
Nice.
So I'm getting time back in each day as well. I'm making more money. I'm probably tattooing for less time as well. I'd do a half day beforehand and still end up giving them 5, 6 hours of tattooing. Whereas now, 4.5 hours, 5 hours tops, and I'll charge a full day for that. So that's a big change, to be fair. So like, if I started to increase the volume, but when I was in survival mode and super caffeinated, I didn't feel like it was too hard to tattoo long. But now I've got about 4 or 5 hours in me, and I feel like, right, okay, that's enough. That's enough from both me and the customer. So I think it's a duplexity of like consideration for their experience and not fatiguing the actual show. And for my energy reserve, because I know that I want to have like high focus the day after as well. Whereas before, I was just a little bit hypnotic, just doing nowhere near the same quality of tattooing as what I'm doing now. That's a big transformation as well, Noah. Like, because I've got this focus and a better you've seen this change physically in the last few months, but my mindset is making my tattooing like, if I went from maybe 5, 6 out of 10 to 7, 8 out of 10 now, from what I can see on skin. And that's only a self accreditation, like I'm evaluating it. But that's how it feels to me. That's the important thing, isn't it? So when I'm doing this person's work and I'm saying, fucking hell, I think I've done a great job there, that makes them feel better about it. I'm giving them the confidence that I have in the piece. Whereas before, I would never even give any of that emotion, because I wanted them to validate me.
Mm.
I'll be stoic, and they'll tell me that they love this tattoo or not. But I wasn't getting any reviews, and I wasn't really hearing much feedback. But now, I've got a lot more passion in my work because there's a little bit more of a growth personally. Like tattoo growth helped my business get better. Now the other places are coming, health and my tattooing, my relationships, like everything else is in key as well. This year is the best. I've been telling people that, like, since I joined Tattoo Growth, this has been the all-time record for me. But in terms of personal feeling as well, I am having my best year. Like,
Nice.
I can't really understate that. But I'm not a very, um, what would I say, emotional person. But you all should have received like, you should all receive a Christmas card from me this year if I'm a nice guy. Do something like that, because you qualify definitely.
Nice. That's
So
very
we'll see
cool.
how it goes. Yeah,
That's very
I'm feeling
nice.
a bit sentimental now.
Yeah, so do I. No, it's just amazing to hear because I know like how hungry you came in as well, and I've seen the results, and we've been speaking a lot. Like it's just amazing to see, and I'm really happy to hear that from you as well. Um,
Yeah, man.
how like if we go into more on like the tattoo growth program in itself, like what are your thoughts about it, and what do you like about it, and how is it like being in the tattoo growth program? Would you say?
So if I'm given the keys to manage my own business for 4 years prior to tattoo growth, and whilst I didn't crash, I was stalling a lot. Yeah. But if I give tattoo growth the keys, it's chauffeur driven. The support is just next level. Do you understand? Like I've not experienced that type of um, willingness to help. You already predict what problems I might have and the roadblocks you work through. I wasn't alienated into the success of it. It sinks and swims directly on me. I did try and show up as best that I could, but I definitely think that the main asset of tattoo growth is like the fact that all of you are there, the team. If you just had a platform, for example, and gave all the advice in video form, I would fail. I'd be back in the driver's seat and I'd crash. But you set it up. You got it going. You showed me how. You spoke me through things. You checked in on a regular basis. Like all those touch points, like are priceless because without them, I don't think I would have done it. So I paid money, so I paid attention, but I would still fail individually. So it is like you're part of a team. You're in a community now, and like that's good, especially from my position where there's nobody in my life coming to save me. I have to do everything on my own. By the time I came into that thing, and it was like, yep, by the hand, done for you. Like that is such a blessing. So tattoo growth is the setup that I needed. I know there's going to be some individuals who are super self-dependent. That's what I thought I was. Like the solo entrepreneur, lone ranger. But it's just it's incredible to have like like no expectation that it was going to be at that level and then actually receive it. And that's your standard, that's your foundation, isn't it? Like you want to help everybody who gets in to get the result. um so yeah, that's really nice, man. I needed that.
Nice. That's really cool. That's really cool. What have you like out of the entire growth? Like, what have you used the most? Do you think is it the coaching or the calls, or is it the strategies, or what do you feel has been the most valuable to you?
Definitely lead acquisition. So by the time that's there, you can kind of get it wrong if it was a case of it, because there's an abundance in supply. So the marketing strategy just worked so well, and I never would have figured it out on my own. So the fact that like that front end of the funnel gets people in. Afterwards, I can have a bit of flexibility on approach. I can send messages in a different way. Let's say I could be inconsistent with the timing, but it still worked out. I think I got 80% of it as you kind of like outlined and structured. And I put design projects in place and said to people, I'll get back to you in 2 to 3 weeks. 8 weeks later, they've still not got a design, but it still worked out. It's a good problem to have. Now I need to, like have a better intake on the next run so that people aren't waiting for that kind of delay. I need a better process. So I'm trying to figure that bit out next. And obviously I'd pace myself. I'd just get a lot more no's and be a bit more scarce with my time and commitment to people so that I don't just take on 60. I want to take on 30 at most, and be able to commit to those with twice the amount of effort, or at least have a better system in place so that I'm getting, better leverage on it. So when I start talking, I do forget the initial question though.
No, that's
um,
good.
I can't, I can't remember it. I've probably gone off at a tangent on every single one.
But it's good. Like, I appreciate you sharing all of this stuff. It's good. I really appreciate it. And just like to end things off a little bit, like, what would you say to someone that is not yet in tattoo growth and maybe were in the same position that you were? Like, what would you say to that person if they were a little bit hesitant to join, or what would you just say to them or recommend them?
Um, So if I like was in if I saw me speaking back in May before I started, all I would need to know is this is the solution that better than the solution that I was hoping for. Um, I just need to, have that go all in mindset, and it's not that much of a jump, like in terms of how hard I think it's going to be. I can be a bit more optimistic because I think I was a bit of a nervous person at the start, and it's it's not like jumping into cold water. Instead, this is nice and warm. Do you know what I mean? It's not going to be a freeze like a shock to you at all. So that money hurdle, which is that's the buy-in, that's the cost of entry. That felt like it was suffocating from where I was in the first place. But you get over that in the first fucking 3 weeks,
Mm. Yeah.
and then for the rest of your life thereafter, you've got the superpower. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So yeah, that's what I needed to hear, I think. But obviously, I'd been going to church, and I had a bit of faith, and it all kind of it hit those touch points of what my expectations were when I heard kind of like the initial marketing and webinars and speaking to you all. So I didn't need any push, but if that sort of statement there that I've said of um, kind of be more faithful and do it, I think that's the best that someone can say from actually going through it and then coming out the other side. Like the proof is in the transformation that I've experienced. So it's worth the money.
Yeah. Nice. I really appreciate you sharing this experience. And like I said it in the beginning here, but it's a pleasure to follow you on your journey here with everything.
Yes.
And yeah, I'm really grateful that you stood up here and took the time for this. So yeah, thank you so much. I will end the recording right here. Thank you.
Okay then, bro. Thank you.
Nice.